if your anime drawings feel off, it's probably not your detail, it's the structure. So in this drawing, I focus on getting that right first. Structure is so important. You could have the structure alone and leave out the details, but if you want both, the structure does make everything else possible for sure. I started with a very light sketch, just mapping out the pose and proportions at this stage. Nothing needs to look good; it just needs to be placed correctly. Um, and as you can see, I'm doing like uh, actual parts of the face, like the mouth, nose, eyebrows, eyes. I'm lining all those proportions up. Um, for the rest of the face, like what part of the face is closest to it that I'm drawing next, based off of seeing where it needs to be placed in relation to another part of the face that I've just finished drawing, or multiple parts of the faces. How are those aligned with another part of the face, right? This is something that I've rushed to an extent, and maybe it's not so much about pacing, but I could have been much more careful in just however much time is needed, however much paying attention to detail is needed. I could have spent more time on that and not hurt a lot of other drawings I've done. Here I'm adjusting the head, shoulders, and arms. This part takes time, but it's what makes everything else easier later. Especially being an upper body uh, or more upper body pose, like I was the head going into the shoulders proportionally, going into the arms, going into the torso, and I'm not saying somebody couldn't just start with the feet, but there's been I've had scenarios where I've started with literally the head, jumped around to other parts of the drawing that I did not proportional. It also in pen, so I can't erase. Didn't bridge the gap in proportions all the way across, and something was out of alignment. So a leg or an arm ended up being too short, um, because maybe the hand that I drew without drawing the arm connecting to it was too close. So I couldn't just wing drawing where something is, but I could bridge the gap there proportionally, right? The face is one of the most important parts, especially for Gohan. I focus on keeping his eyes sharp and his expression intense. Oh. There's a lot of very defining features for different characters. Yeah, for sure, Gohan's face would probably define him. I say Goku's hair could specifically define him in his face, obviously. His hair, body structure. Gohan, it's like face and body structure, depending on what age he was. This was teen Gohan. There's certain defining things that you could say, let you know that that's that character more than anything else. Or if you've seen another character who had that feature, like for example, you could say, "Oh, that person has Vegeta's body." Like Vegeta was more slim and ripped, and then Goku was more like broad. But there's other characters that have kind of like Goku's body to an extent. Um, or if you look at characters like Nappa, or where when Vegeta first came to Earth with that guy Nappa, or that guy in the Ginyu Force, I forgot his name, but the same build, whatever. So there's like certain archetypes. Could I say that Raditz was like the only character that had his body type in here that I could remember in that show? Um, the hair and lighting effects are what really define SSJ2. I tried to keep the spikes directional and add energy with lightning. There was more lightning I could have drawn. I just drew the ones closer to his body. I could have drawn the Super Saiyan aura around his body, and I just chose to draw the lightning bolts, Super Saiyan here, and lightning bolts that were like, some of them were going over his body. The ones that were like outside, not even going over parts of his body or hair, I just didn't even draw those. I think there was one that went over a part of his body or his hair that I didn't even draw. And I just drew the hair without it, or drew the body part, omitting that lightning. Um, Here I had worked on the torso and the clothing. I kept the fold simple so the drawing doesn't get too messy. It obviously, like, it's somewhat disheveled or whatever because he was in battle with Cell. It was him versus Cell to save the world in that specific in this specific photo, or this specific pose and appearance of him in the show. Um, this is where I still building everything out, but slowly start to even also darkening some things, um, and going over everything with more confident lines once the structure is right. This part comes much easier. There's nothing wrong with somebody doing a dark line first, but if they're doing it in pen for some reason, which you don't have to do at all, but if you're gonna do it in pen like me, oh yeah, it's much better to just do it lighter and then go back over it when you understand that that's even the line you wanted. Because every mistake, you can just leave the mistake there and be advanced enough at drawing that you could literally still draw the photo and somehow that mistake is not apparent, or draw to the point where that mistake becomes part of the photo and relevant to the photo, or you can just start over even if you put in multiple hours into that photo. So it's like how much time do you have to do this, and are you challenge running it in pen? And it just makes more sense to go do everything lighter. Same with shading. Um, or I shouldn't have said same with shading, but what happens is with shading, the way I could explain that is I do the outline of the area I'm going to shade very, very light so that when I shade it in, the outline is not darker than the shading. I make that mistake sometimes to accidentally draw that line too dark. I've done that before in like over the past few weeks on accident. Um, I added small details and cleaned up the drawing to make it look more polished. This is one of my better drawings so far. Um, and if you would like to see more, subscribe and comment who I should draw next. Just finishing up extra details here and there. And the hair. I didn't move the camera up enough. There you go.